You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. Welcome to the show. Should change that intro, shouldn't I? Should do something a bit more lively, but frankly, you guys know what you're getting at this point in time. And if you're new to the show, welcome. I've been doing that introduction for the past 3 years or so, but whatever. It's never the point, because the point here is that I'm talking to another fabulous musician. This time around, it is Dave Lupton from Sydney-based Flaming Wrekage. The catalyst for the chat is due to the release of Cathedral of Bones, a modern, brutal thrash metal extravaganza. I'm enjoying this one, so here he is, Dave Lupton. You must be thrilled with how Cathedral of Bones turned out, because the bit of feedback I've got for you is that there's a bunch of down-picked guitar passages from heaven or hell, depending on your perspective on here, that would make give James Hetfield cause to smile, mate. So you've got to be thrilled with how your efforts have produced this yield, courtesy of this album.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, man. That's about as good as you can get compliments from me. Yeah, definitely gave the right hand to work out on the recording of this one. But yeah, just the songwriting was a little bit different this time around. We just gave it a little bit more time. And we had all four dudes involved in it. On previous records, it's sort of been a case of just bringing riffs forward and then we sort of just pieced the songs together. But this time it was like when we were writing, we were all there all the time. And that led to some more interesting sort of passages on the record. Like there's some cool rhythmic stuff going on that wasn't really guitar based to start with, which leads to some interesting things that I haven't really even considered on previous releases. So stuff like that just, really boosted the songs. And just the preparation was another one that really helped us get a tough sounding final product. We did so much pre-pro. And by the time we actually got to the studio, we were just super prepared. So yeah, man, it was a good process.
So what was the most painful part of recording then?
Probably vocals. Vocals is always pretty fucked. For me, it's just I'm my own worst enemy with that. I like to rewrite things quite a few times usually, because I'm just not happy with them the first couple of times. And on this album as well, there was a couple of songs that were coming from a bit more of a personal place, some topics that I hadn't really explored too much before and that I had wanted to write about for quite a while. So and just the recording process for that was we recorded with Chris Themelko, who's just a killer engineer, and that was another thing that made a massive difference, is that he is a fan of our band. Similarly to the PR guys, they're not going to work with anyone they don't like. It just makes it easier for everyone involved if that there's that passion there across the board. So he really gave me a big boost with the vocal parts, but he also didn't let me drink any cold liquid in the middle of summer. So I was just drinking tea on 40-degree days, just trying to get these vocal takes out. But we pushed it really hard. But yeah, man, I think the result came out pretty well. So yeah, you got to go through a bit of hell sometimes to get the good takes.
Man, he wouldn't let you have a beer on a 40-degree day. He must be a taskmaster.
I know. What an arsehole.
Jesus. Well, the proof's in the pudding that it worked, though. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? About some sacrifice. In the short term, it feels like shit, but in the long term, now you've got this great album, and you suffered for it. And I think, to be honest, man, I think you do have to suffer for a lot of good art.
That's right. Yeah, and especially if you're going to really get stuck into the performance side of things with some of the songs that really mean something to you, you've really got to push as hard as you can for those ones.
Yes. And look, talking about the lyrical themes, you're talking about you dived into some personal subjects, and the bio, of course, states that you mine some apocalyptic societal themes. God, there's enough of them around now. And the bleakness of the planet's future. Is that a greater angle, or where are you going to with that one?
It's not like a concept album or anything like that. It was just a bit of a concept I was playing around with. A lot of that came from just the title, Cathedral of Bones, and then I just sort of ran with that, I guess. And we had a really stressful process trying to figure out the artwork. and it came out so good in the end. But that was like, we had 3 different artists work on that. The first guy was this Indonesian dude, Riven Arji, who we've used for lots of stuff. Like he designed our logo and he's done a bunch of shirts for us and stuff. And he just went off the radar. So I hope he's okay, but I haven't heard from him for quite a long time.
Shit. Yeah, I work with the Indos as well on my artwork as well. I've got a
yeah, man, they're great. Like he was always just so good. So yeah, I hope he's okay. And then it just got to a point where like it was half done and we needed to finish it, so we had to get someone else to step in, and they weren't really what we were looking for. And then we got this third guy, Mike Morfitt, who absolutely nailed it. But when I saw that artwork, like I think that was a big, like I drew more inspiration from that on a lyrical point of view as well. Just like, you know, each bone is sort of a building block to the apocalypse kind of thing. And I know that has been flogged to death, just, you know, the world's fucked and all that stuff. But tried to, you know, take a fresh angle on it in some ways. And I think there's like some overlapping themes in there. Like this, like I said before, there's some personal stuff, there's some societal themes that kind of, you know, overlap to create what the album is. So
can you talk a bit more about this line here from the bio where you help family members through the lyrics whose disabilities prevent them from expressing themselves clearly and wanting nothing more? You want nothing more than to give them a voice. So that's extremely personal there. Can you expand on that a bit?
Sure, man. Yeah, so that's the song The Voiceless. That was the first single. And that was kind of what I was referring to before when we were doing the vocal takes with, you know, struggling to get the right takes out and stuff, just because it was such a real personal song. I've been wanting to write about that for a long time, but yes. So my sister, Veronica, she's physically and mentally disabled, non-verbal. And so I just wanted to write a song kind of from the perspective of me growing up and my parents just trying to overcome those barriers of not being able to communicate with any words, and just trying to find new ways to get around that kind of thing. And I just wanted to really get the concept of resilience out there for that one. You know, you're backed into a corner, you've got no choice but to just work out a way to make it work. So yeah, that was a tough one, man. Like I rewrote that song a million times just because I wasn't happy with like one word, you know, like I just obsess over little things on it. But yeah, it came out really great. And just the whole process, like we did a video clip for that song as well, which is obviously based off that concept. And even that was super challenging. Like we had our videographer, James, who did a great job. It was just so difficult trying to explain the concept to him, because we were kind of fleshing it out. Like I remember having a meeting with him, like, it must have been just when COVID kicked off. So there was like months and months of planning for that clip, and just trying to, like, I didn't really know him that well. Like he's done like maybe one photo shoot and one like gig shoot for us, I think. So trying to explain to this guy that I don't really know too well, like, you know, some of the darkest shit in my life, I guess, was pretty challenging, but yeah, we're pretty good mates now.
I bet. Was it a cathartic experience for you?
Yeah, 100%, man. And yeah, right through to like the first time we got to play it live, it's just it was a whole process. But yeah, I remember like showing it to mum and dad, and they were pretty emotional. But you know, it's good to have a vehicle like a band to be able to, like, I don't know, like I don't really talk about it that often, and now I'm talking about it in all these interviews. But like, you know, like I just don't think I'm not that open with it all the time. So like to have something like, you always feel like you can be more open when you're like writing lyrics. So to have that like vehicle to do that is it's pretty epic.
I think you can step back when you're writing lyrics as well, because they can almost come from a third person perspective. It's not just necessarily your thoughts or your opinion. It's a combination of a bunch of things. But it's wonderful that you've done that, mate, and that you felt, what's the word? It's not confidence that I'm looking for, but you felt like you'd arrived at a point in your life where you could do that, and you could serve that relationship in that way. So
yeah, for sure. And like
I
also write a lot of my lyrics from a point of view that's, you know, pretty open to interpretation. So like on a base level, if you can just take from that song that like the resilience factor, you don't have to, you know, have anything to like directly in common with it. You know, you can just take it as a concept like that, and then take something else from it entirely. So I like to think that, you know, people can do that as well, which makes me feel pretty good.
It does, yeah. Skeletons of Giants is probably my favourite card on the album.
Yeah, cool.
And
Thanks, man.
look, if we're thrash and death metal fans, there's no bigger band than Slayer. I mean, I love Morbid Angel, but I know for most people out there, Slayer are it. Man, that's a killer. I'm not going to call it a homage, but you know, it's in a similar vibe. As soon as I heard that, I just got a killer Dark Angel / Slayer vibe coming from it. So does a comment like that resonate for you with that cut?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think Testament as well was a big influence on this record. Like Juzzy's a huge Testament fan. A lot of his kind of like faster, more thrashy like style of riffing comes from that sort of place. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what kind of makes up the sound of the band. Like Juzzy he's just a riff machine. He sends me so many riffs like every day, and he stays up till 3 a.m. just playing guitar. Like I'll wake up tomorrow and have 3 new songs probably.
Wow.
But he comes from more like the thrash side of things, and I'm like, if like the more melodic sort of stonery like parts of the record, that'd be more my bag. But I love my thrash metal as well, man. So that kind of just comes together and makes like that, you know, unique kind of sound that like teeters on the edge of like melodic death and thrash, I guess, is what people tend to call us. But yeah, I don't know, man. I can't keep up. There's too many comparisons.
It's all just heavy metal to me, but I take your point absolutely, because it's like what again, like what I was talking about. Well, Chris mentioned it, but I agree with him about the micro niches. It's just with social media marketing and spreading the message out there. So allow me to ask you a question about that side of things. God, I finished uni not too long ago, less than 12 months ago, and one of the subjects I took was social media marketing, and I didn't do that well at it, I've got to say. It seems like a dark art. So how do you guys go with it?
Man, I've gotten like really invested into the like marketing side of things since this album's come out. Like we've had a lot more people involved helping us get there. Like, you know, a couple of different PR guys and like the distro dudes and stuff. But at the end of the day, we're self-managed, so it's up to us to do that stuff. And yeah, man, it's crazy. Like Facebook pretty much owns everything, and they change their formats all the time, so you got to keep like across that. And it's just like, if you thought social media was addictive already, and if you have a band, it's like you've got another profile that I'm more addicted to the band like page than I am my own one. But yeah, I mean, it's been good in the sense that you know, like learning how to like target the correct audience. Like with all the online ads and stuff, I've really got stuck into that, which has gotten us a lot more like plays and followers, I would say. And you can get so into it, man. Like when you're doing a targeted ad, like you can get so specific, and that's what you want. You want to, you know, like when it says like target audience, you don't want to just write heavy metal. Like you got to know your market. So I think that's very important to if you want to keep your band rolling, because social media is just so important, man. Like people have the shortest attention span they've ever had, so you got to keep coming up with fresh content. And that's one thing that we've tried to do a lot more of as well, is just our artist manager from Blood Blast, he calls it the virtual merch desk. You know, like trying to engage with fans on a personal level through social media. So just finding new ways to do that, man. It's a challenge. Like you can get really burnt out by it, but yeah, you have to manage your time quite well to do it effectively, I think. But yeah, it's been something that I haven't really dived into that deeply until this release. So it's just another thing. But you know, that's the story. You know, like the more, for one of the better words, success, I guess, your band gets, like the more busy you are. So, and you need to manage those things effectively. So, no, I've enjoyed the challenge for the most part.
You said something that resonates there, which is that if you thought social media was addictive and you spent a lot of time on it with your own profile, wait until you've got a band profile or, like me, a podcast profile. It's insane between Instagram and Facebook. And I got to say, I do bugger all. I'm just I'm just about to start some A and B testing, but all videos actually. I'm just going to do some video stuff. Just trying to do more reviews. I'll do a review of yours. Just all nothing negative. It's a bit of a setup, to be honest with you, but from the perspective that you're trying to generate interest, and I simply won't review anything anyway I don't like. So there's no point. A couple of times I've done it in the past, and I felt like shit afterwards, to be honest with you, because I don't know the artist, and I can't. It's if you don't like, so I'm not a keyboard warrior. I'd rather just give them direct feedback. But I mean, who the fuck am I to give them feedback on something they've probably spent, or any other reviewer, in a lot of respect? That's why I can't stand the Rolling Stone and Vice and what's that other shithead news site? Oh God, Pitchfork.
Yeah, right.
Like they don't care. I mean, they're just hipsters. I mean, they're just interested in which the volume of Lil Nas X's Nikes that have got human blood in them or what have you. It's not even about music anymore with that shit. But anyhow, I'll get back on track. And what I noticed about you, man, and I could be wrong here, but I went to Encyclopedia Metallium, and you seem to be the one constant in the band since the EP Disaster Zone in 2010. So if that's the case, what's the journey been like?
Man, it's been that's the hardest part, isn't it? Trying to find 3 other dudes that give as much of a fuck as you do. I would say that, like, you have to be a band for quite a while before you figure out what the fuck you're doing. And I don't trust anyone that has been a band for 2 or 3 years and then they're on tour and they reckon they got it made. Like, you need to grind pretty hard and probably lose some members, and it takes a long, like, this lineup we got now we've had for about 4 or 5 years, I think. And man, it's been a grind to get to that point. Like, but looking back on everything that's happened, there's been a lot of shit that's happened, but it's necessary. It's necessary part of the growth of anything that you want to to see do well. So yeah, but like we've just learned how to harness like that kind of stuff. Like, good example, like when we were in Europe on that tour a few years ago, like, you kind of like living in each other's pockets and like getting to know each other on the road. I was talking to Andy Dowling about this on his podcast, and he was like, it's just the weirdest mode of travel, like, just to get to know somebody. So, when you're on the other side of the world and it's like, well, this has to work. And sometimes it doesn't for a lot of bands. Like, I've heard, there's plenty of horror stories out there. But in our case, like, this particular tour is pretty, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but yeah, there's a couple of egos flying around. And we just decided that rather than, get into a war of words or anything like that, we were just going to shut our mouth and go on stage and just fucking rip it, like, harder than anyone else on the bill.
So issues within the band. You had some ego issues within the band.
Not in our band. It was just like other bands on that tour.
Oh yeah, look, I've got to be honest, man. That's from, I've done over 600 interviews at this point, and that's one of the most common things that comes up for indie metal bands. You know what I mean? Like, bands like you guys that are touring in a far-flung place, mate. There's always going to be shitheads and other bands that want to treat you like shit, mate. It actually happens with very big bands. So the amount of times that I've had some pretty bloody prominent people on the podcast who told me such and such is a real asshole, and what they've done to them, and they've told me, do not repeat it, this stuff. And it's like, okay, I won't. But man, I've got to tell you, I've had to cut out, geez, man, I've spoken to some musicians for up to 4 hours.
Yeah, right.
And the stories, brother, that I've heard, I don't know whether I just think it's a symptom of the human condition. And it's so exacerbated when you're doing what you're doing all the way across the other side of the world. You're trying to do your very best, and then you're with these other guys or girls maybe, and they just don't care that you're leading your best life right now, and you just need to be left the fuck alone to do that.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it was we learned a lot about ourselves on that tour, and just finding the way to turn that those feelings of frustration into something like productive was like a bit of a breakthrough moment. Like, there's a line in that song, Running Blind, it says use the hate. And that's kind of become our mantra. Like, anytime someone pisses us off, it's like, shut the fuck up, use the hate, go on stage, just smoke them, don't worry about it. So, but back to your question, sorry. going to Europe for the first time, like it's a grind, man, and you gotta hit those markets and do some shit tours and do some shit venues. Like it's just like starting out at any market, so it's almost like starting from the ground up again. So you have to grind your ass off in Australia, and then if you want to make it a real thing, you got to do that everywhere else as well. So, but that's why we love it. It's all part of it. But yeah, man, like you learn like little things like that along the way, and it makes it a little bit more bearable.
I'm a bassist and guitarist, and I've got to say I've never truly played in a metal band, which is odd given what my stuff behind me looks like here and all the rest of it, and my podcast. But I'm being a bass player. I just love playing like good bass lines, which generally means funk, groove, disco, a lot of pop songs, and the very limited experience that I had in metal bands, man, was bloody awful. I've got to tell you.
Yeah, right.
Very difficult. Playing in the pop bands and stuff, people are they're just normal people that have got normal office jobs and shit. You know what I mean? Whereas with metal, it's more of a lifestyle. That's the key difference. Yeah. And you get people who I think are very tightly bound up in it. And they're not got the vision that someone like you has got. So they can't write songs. They're just sort of along for the ride in a lot of respects. And they, just being out there doing it is enough. No, it's not enough. I think you've got to have Jordan Peterson always talks about having a goal. And if you don't have a goal, like it's not like one of those American things where you've got to set goals and go after them, and that's all about real estate and new cars and all that bullshit. No, it's just about leading a productive and meaningful life and actually feeling like as though you're leading a life that is the one that you wanted to lead when you were 18 and 19 and planning ahead, and thinking ahead to where you were going to be. And I often think, man, that people like yourself who are trying to do it, one of the indicators that you're well on your way is that you're going to deal with fuckwits. And if you're not dealing with fuckwits, you're probably not at the level where you need to be yet. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
No, that's spot on. But you just got to learn how to deal with them.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
But yeah, man, I think it's not hard to be nice to people. So that's the most productive way that we found to get through things. It's just as like on tour, like if you can't work something out with someone that you're, on tour with within the space of a day, it's just not going to work.
No.
Like, especially on this European tour, we were all in the same van. We had two bands in the same van plus crew. So there was, it was pretty gnarly, but we had a great time. And that was the thing. We were like, we're having more fun than them. So fuck them.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, fuck them. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I love the way you're turning a negative into a positive too, which is the use the hate, because there's this idea that you got to be meek and just take the bullshit and stuff. But sometimes, I got to say it, man, sometimes you just got to punch somebody the fuck in the head. I've just learned that punishes don't go away sometimes. They just keep rounding. If you get physical, it teaches them a lesson that even if you might be not as strong as them or what have you, it's that you're not going to back down. And if they keep going, at some point, they will get hurt too. Some people just don't understand what boundaries are. And musicians are shockers for that, I've got to say, and the way you've turned that negative into a positive and channeled it back into two things, the songwriting and the band's performance, man. Mate, if you meet Punishers again, watch out. They're going to end up in one of your songs.
Yeah, well, that's it. And, like it doesn't have to be like it's just our message to ourselves more than anything else. Like they're probably never going to know it's about them, and that's fine. Like I'm not trying to be vindictive in any way to anybody. I think it's just if there's egos flying around, you can turn it into something good, and that's what we found on that tour. And yeah, that became a really big song for us actually. So yeah, man, like it's funny how things can come from a shit place, but you can harness it into something good. And if you're like I said before, if you have a vehicle like that vehicle to channel your emotions, yeah, I mean, you're quite lucky really. Like if you can go out there and play a shit hot show, like you feel amazing after it, and then you don't have to even argue with them or any of that stuff. So yeah, man.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I wouldn't say I've had a lot of arguments with people that I've been in bands with, but some of them have been doozies. Yeah, and Yeah, you just want to be with people that are cool and on the same wavelength as you. And I often say, because I'm playing covers, right? I often say that the litmus test for me of a good musician is what we talk about in the breaks, because we're playing four sets most often,
Yeah,
three sets or four sets. And if we're talking about the football scores in the break, that's a fucking good sign usually. Is that
yeah.
I play with Dave from God, not lately with COVID, but I've been in the band with Dave from the Porkers,
Oh, cool.
and he's just such a class act, that guy. I'm a Tigers fan, he's a Parramatta fan, and we just chat about that, and God knows whatever else. Both of our kids are the same age, and you just want that connection that way, don't you? If you talk to someone and say, hey, when you did played that E, can you play it in the octave rather than down below on the B string or what have you? I'm like, oh my God, serious? You're talking
Yeah,
about that now in the break? Jesus Christ, dude, we've done the hard yards. It's just the way people play. Bit of a different thing for me compared to what you guys have to do, because it's for you guys, I imagine the rehearsal room is the proving ground. You just get in there and it's just got to happen. Is that how it works?
yeah. I guess like we are still pretty chill though, man. Like on this record, like that's the most, it's the most challenging songs that we've written, and it was just a case of relearning them almost to get them ready to play. Like that's another thing with like recording, and I'm sure it's the case for a lot of metal bands, but it's very easy to get carried away with layers when you're recording, and we like to add a shitload of guitars. You look at the guitar tracks and you're like, how the fuck are we going to do this live? And then you just record it. But it's all about the best interest of the song. So if that song needs 25 guitar tracks, then that's what we're going to do, and then we'll work that out later. Like, and that's another thing with like with the vocals and my guitar parts. Like, I don't really give a shit about how hard it's going to be to sing and play when I'm writing it. Like, there's been heaps of songs where I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna. This is impossible. But like, that was one good thing about last year. We had a shitload of time to relearn everything properly. So yeah, in that respect, it's just like, just drilling the shit out of them until they're tight, man. But having said that, nothing can prepare you for like the stage. You can rehearse the shit out of stuff, but like you gotta get it out there. Like we got this one song that we're closing with at the moment, and I was like, it's like 80% there in the rehearsal room. Play 2 shows in a row. I'm like, there you go, it's done now. It's good. You need you need to be match fit.
With the rehearsal side of things, do you have to rehearse with mirrors to try and get some, I wouldn't call them stage moves, but to make to put on a bit of a visual presence for people watching?
No, I don't think we've ever really done that. When I'm learning how to sing and play, I usually try and minimize like my head moving down to look at the guitar. So I usually put the lyrics on a wall and then just play it slow, and then just slowly build up speed. So I'm kind of learning the lyrics as I'm learning how to like put it together, sort of thing. But yeah, no cock rock mirror stuff. We just get up there and just smash it out.
They're always the rehearsal rooms that are the first ones. They're always booked, aren't they, in rehearsal studios, if they've got the mirrors. And you see the band staring at themselves when they've got the door open and someone's going out to go to the bathroom or get another beer or whatever it might be. And,
full dress rehearsal.
Yeah, I've always just done in the round, where you're just looking at each other for cues and saying, okay, stop, we've got to go over this bit here. And I mean, playing covers, man, you don't even rehearse most of the time. There's just an expectation that the bloody song, because it's already there.
Yeah.
So just learn it and turn up. But God almighty, the amount of times I've turned up and someone's like, oh, I learnt another version. It's like, you didn't learn it at all, did you? You just thought you could do it because it's a popular song, and it's very hard, actually.
It's funny, like a few bands that we've played with don't really rehearse together as well, just because everything's on a click. So they've just got in-ears and they just practice to that, which is like bizarre for me. Like, I don't think we could really get away with that. Like, we've never played to a click. Sometimes we rehearse to a click if we want to get something really tight, but like, I don't know. I like that. We have too many parts that just hang for a little bit longer each night, or it's just a bit too loose for us to do that. But yeah, I really like that. The energy of the whole band playing together. So
Yeah, I don't think it'll work for you guys. There's a lot of movement in these songs from the perspective that they do move and groove, is what I mean. And so you
Yeah,
need that breathing space to be able to make some decisions in the moment. And if that means holding off the cymbal hit just that beat longer,
yeah,
and you can't do that with a click track, like I unless somebody's more or less in terms of live approaching expert level, I would never recommend a drummer to play with the click track because you don't know how the rest of the musicians are going to interpret a song, particularly if you haven't bloody rehearsed that much.
yeah.
God, there's
Oh,
been some
there's
disasters.
just shitload of like tech death metal bands that play like that, and like that's fine. Like whatever works for them, that's cool. But yeah, for us, we just got a little bit too much groove going on in a few parts. So yeah, it probably wouldn't work for us. But one thing that it has been great recently as well is our bass player Locke has just taken over this studio in Beecroft. It's just a little studio where he teaches out of. So that's kind of become like our little HQ now, which is fucking awesome. Like we got all their merch there and stuff. And yeah, it just means that I have to go a little bit further. But I've got away with rehearsing like two minutes away from my house for like the best part of 6 years. So I'm fine to drive a little bit further. It's all good. But yeah, it makes it so much easier not having any like time to get you have to get out of or anything like that. So yeah, man, it's good.
Brutal thrash metal and Beecroft aren't usually two things that I would associate with each other, I must say.
No, well, there's a restaurant downstairs as well, so they haven't complained yet, but I'm pretty sure that kick drum would just be pummeling them the whole time. But
Oh, brutal! Yeah, yeah. Well, there's a pub up here, the Exchange, which is just opposite Roma Street Station, the big station like Central Station in Sydney. And
yeah,
we used to go in there after work opposite the Telstra building. Used to be in the complex just above Roma Street Station, and used to go for some bevies and some dinner there. This is like 14, 15 years ago, however long ago it was. And there's this noise punk thing up here, like Beast of Bourbon and bands like that, noisy rock punk sort of stuff. And one of those type of bands that Brisbane is famous for would rehearse upstairs in the Transcontinental Hotel, not the Exchange, the Transcontinental, sorry. And yeah, you'd fucking hear everything. I wonder how. I mean, they weren't good either. It would be one thing listening to you guys and hearing your glorious thrash would be one thing, but these guys were a bunch of. It sounded like they'd got on the piss before they picked up their instruments, and they weren't so much out of tune, but they're out of time. and,
yeah, right.
Yeah, look, you get that. You got to rehearse where you can, especially if funds are tight.
Yeah, that's it. I don't reckon anyone that goes to get some pasta at that place would call us glorious in any way. But
well, if I know what the restaurant is, I might do that. I might say, hey, the reason I come to this restaurant is because
yeah,
you've got this band here playing this music. It's the ambience of the spaghetti combined
yeah.
with the brutal thrash. So. Hey, here's a question for you insofar as Catharsis. So that was your debut album in 2013.
Yeah.
Have you intentionally evolved since then, or has it happened rather naturally? Meaning your approach to songwriting, that is.
I think it's been pretty organic just from like other influences coming to the party. Like that album, I pretty much played everything except drums. So I just wrote everything. And Flesh was me and Juz wrote that. And then this one, all four of us wrote it. So yeah, it's just, more influences and more people coming to the party, I guess. And just, like we have such a vast range of influences at the moment that it's just inspiration coming from all angles. So yeah, man, it's crazy. Like I can hardly even listen to that album now. Like just the difference in everything, like the performance, the songwriting is just so vast. So yeah, no, it's but it's cool to see that evolution. I think like if I heard one song off that and then one song off Cathedral, it'd be like, yeah, it's so different. But yeah, it goes back to what I was saying before. Like you gotta grind it out, man. Like if you have a really big successful first album, it's like fuck, where do you go from there? It's hard. I think it's better to have a couple of albums that are not shit, but like that teach you how to be a band. I think that's a really important thing.
Metal is an album genre. I get that, but Spotify doesn't reward people who create albums. Did you think about turning Cathedral of Bones into a drip feed of singles or just individual tracks or even an EP?
Not really, man. Like I think that kind of release strategy is still. I'm not sure if it would work with our kind of music. I know that Spotify does reward that kind of release strategy, like when you're pitching for more playlists, if like you make more of a big deal about particular songs. Like I've got mates that play in sort of pop punk bands, and like their whole strategy is just to release one song at a time and make a video for each song, so you've got maximum content for every single piece of the album that's coming out. But sorry, there's a plane just coming over.
No, good. No worries.
Live really close to the airport.
No worries.
But yeah, like I think even from a digital perspective, metalheads they still want to listen to the whole record back to front, and that's how I prefer to listen to music, at least. Like, yeah, the whole Spotify conversation, man. Like, I think like it's not ideal, like the way that the money's there. It's just not split up very well. But it's an ever-changing industry, and I think bands have just got to adapt to that.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. There's people whinged when like CDs came in. It's just like it's an ever-changing thing. It's every generation has a new way of presenting music, I guess. And yeah, from a consumer perspective, Spotify's fucking awesome. Like you've got everything you'd ever want, like right there. And I've discovered so many bands, even just from Wrekage getting on a bunch of playlists, like going through those playlists and listening to that is like, I've discovered heaps of new bands that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. So from a consumer perspective, it's fucking good, but it's just, it is hard to make any money, but you just got to, I don't know, man, you've just got to adapt to it and just treat it more as a way of more people hearing your music.
Yeah. It has to link up with a decent social strategy, which you've got, and touring, which nobody's been able to do for a while now. So hopefully, things sort
and
of
also
get back
like
to normal.
It's cool to like when it comes time to like book stuff overseas, like you can see exactly where your fans are very easily, and that's like when we were talking about like being addicted to like the band page and the podcast page for you. Like the Spotify artist app is even fucking worse. That's another thing that I'm addicted to now, because you can see like, how many people are listening now, and like where your listeners are and what playlist you're on, and all these like demographics and all these all these numbers and stuff. And like I have no doubt that like big promoters use those tools to book tours, and it would be a lot easier for them to do that. You can see exactly where your fan base is. So in that regard, it's good as well. Like it's not all bad, man. And like getting on those big playlists is like, it's skyrocketed our streams. So yeah, like I'm not fully against it.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And the reason I say that is because I don't think the model rewards artists at all. We know that, but it's here to stay, and you either work with it or you get fucked. Like that's honestly the way the situation is evolving at this point in time. And the CEO of Spotify was I don't think he does many interviews, but he's not a dummy, of course. He's actually an extremely intelligent fellow. And he was talking about what I mentioned earlier about linking in and providing fans with like the whole experience. It's not just about the music anymore. You've got to have I'm paraphrasing, of course, but the video, the social presence, the fan interaction stuff, maybe do some what do they call it, GoFundMe, Patreon style thing, whatever that's called. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I forget what that style of marketing is called.
And like as an artist, you need to treat Spotify and Apple Music to a lesser extent as another form of social media. Like you need to be constantly updating profile pictures and like artist pick and all that stuff. And like Spotify does make it pretty easy to do that. Like, like we were just like, well, since we've signed this distro thing with Blood Blast, they've been great in like, personally coaching us through the process of how to maximize all of that stuff. And Spotify was something that I didn't really think of in that way previous to this release as well.
Mm.
So that's been another thing that I've like. It's been a massive learning curve, man. And just like knowing the right way to go about it is at the end of the day, it just gets more people listening to your band, and that's the most important thing. Like, I obviously want people to buy the album, because I like metalheads still have this, deep connection to physical copies, which is great. And I don't think many other genres still have that. There's like rock and roll and metal heads are still, they're fucking collectors, man. And that's cool. And that means you can still find a way to maximize your streams and have some really killer merch and do like different vinyl variants and all that stuff, and still sell some physicals as well. So as long as you're across all that, like, you can make it work from multiple angles. And yeah, like I said, it's just more people listening to your music. So that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah, solid perspective. And the other thing I think is, from an audience perspective, you guys must rip live. And I know I'm going to try and get to your gig there on the 8th of May at Mansfield TAF.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, that'll be awesome. I can't wait for that show.
Yeah, we've got some. All these cult ticket bands are coming up.
Yeah, it's I think it's a real testament to the strength of the Sydney scene at the moment. We've got 2 Sydney bands headlining a festival in Brisbane, which is pretty cool.
And I got to say, mate, that's a first, because Sydney, as you probably are aware, mate, I mean, Sydney has given birth to the greatest bands in Australia of all time. In Excess, AZD, the Easy Beats, But, mate, for about 25 years there, nothing was coming out of Sydney.
Yeah, there was a bit of a flat period, like, and certainly in the metal circle for a little while there. But now it's just so good. Like, there's like Sumeru doing stuff, Black Rhino, Astro Death. Like, there's a lot of cool stoner bands coming out of there. So yeah, man, it's really exciting. Like, and that's one thing that we're trying to do more of, especially this year, is just play with some different bands. Like, I'm kind of sick of playing with 3 or 4 of the same sounding thrash bands. It's still Australia. Like, there's not that many, and chances are you've probably seen all those guys before. No disrespect to them whatsoever, but just like, I think from a punter's perspective, it opens up, like, it's just cool, like, to see, like, if you went to a gig and saw like Harlot and Astro Death, like, I would be like, that's fucking sick. Like, I saw Harlot and Dr. Colossus played a show together in Melbourne. I was like, that's killer. Like, there should be more of that. Like, and for the bands as well, like, you get to play to people that probably wouldn't have, come out to see otherwise. So yeah, I think just being a bit more open with genres is cool, because yeah, like, it's still a small scene across the rock and metal banner. So like, yeah, I think that's really important, man.
Yeah, I had a chat to Jono from Dr. Colossus a few weeks back, actually.
Yeah,
and
I listened to that, actually.
Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah. He's a good dude, man. Yeah, all these bands.
We did some shows with them, actually, like a couple of years ago. It was really fun.
Yes, yeah. Look, I think to your point there, we might be a small scene in Australia still. Of course we are, but I think there's enough diversity and variety that, to your point there, because I'm with you 100% on that one there. Like, you guys and Black Reno, one after the other, would be a marvelous combination. But I'm not sure, and this, no disrespect to Harlot at all, and Andrew and the band are great guys and great band, but I'm not sure that would go down that well, because you're in the same quadrant on the compass, so to speak.
Yeah,
and that's where I think festivals are very. I don't envy anybody who has to organise a festival from that perspective, because people want to hear their favourite bands, but you've got to put all these bands, and no doubt there's some egos, and the managers themselves have egos, jostling for position where they go on the lineup. But you have to have that A and B set up like a checkerboard, if you like.
Sure.
If you have Exodus going on after Testament, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that happens, by the way. But man, after about 3 hours of that, no matter if Testament are your favourite band, and they are one of my favourite bands, I don't think I'd stick around for too long.
Yeah, for sure, man. Like, we try and avoid doing those like all day festivals that are like similar kind of bands all day. Like this Brizzy one we're doing is all day, but there's quite a bit of variety on the lineup, and that's like a big thing for us. Like, yeah, like we've done quite a few of those, and it's just like I don't know. It's just it feels like it's just a lot of bands. It's not really like the word festival can be thrown around pretty loosely. I think sometimes, there needs to be a bit of variety. So yeah, that one will be really cool just because it has that. And like Black Reno are different from us heaps. Like they've got, we've got a bit of groove, but they're like a groove band. Like there's shitloads of different influences coming in there. Like there's some death metal on the bill, there's some thrash, there's some other stuff. It's unique enough to not make the day feel like a drag. And some of those ones that we've done like that, it's just like everyone's just fucked by like 10 o'clock, and like the sound guy that's been mixing 12 bands straight has just got no ears. So yeah, I think in that regard, it's really important to diversify.
It is, and the quality. I thought the metal scene was strong about 4 years ago or so. I'm not saying it ebbed or anything like that, but you get used to the bands that are out there, like the Aversions, Crowns, the deathcore bands like Thy Art Is Murder and stuff, and then you wait for the new stuff to come through. And I think you're a part of that. I know you've been going for 10, 15 years or thereabouts, but you know what I'm saying. It's the stuff that's starting to become prominent and easy for people to sort of get into due to the algorithm, the social media algorithm throwing your name up constantly. And I think we're going through another high tide, if you like, with you guys and the other Cult Etiquette bands there, man. So man, we're coming out of COVID strong, that's for sure. I hope that that people get off their asses and actually support the bands and go out there to the shows and watch them.
Man, I reckon they absolutely will. It's just and I have faith that will last as well. Like it's crazy. Like, it feels like, it's taken something so horrible for people to, have this appreciation for live music. Like we were saying before, like Sydney was a bit dead for a little while there. And, like just that attitude of like, oh, that band will play again soon, but now it's like, no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So people are buying tickets and they're fucking filling out venues, man. Like it was just, I was kind of worried about the ticket price for our Sydney show because we don't usually, just because of the COVID restrictions and stuff, we had to charge a fair bit more than we normally would. And I was like, oh man, that's too much. Like people aren't going to pay that. And then bang, sold out. No worries.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
It's not an issue. Like people are, really keen to get out there and support venues. And that's a very important thing as well. Like venues are, that they're still not back up to full capacity. So they need people to get down there, man, drink some beers and watch some bands because it's fucking, it's just horrible what they've been through last year, like with all the restrictions and all the cunty landlords. But man.
Oh, and cunty premiers who aren't doing surgical lockdowns and locking down entire states for political purposes is the other thing. Michael Chugg was going on about that in an interview that I read with him this morning, because he can't book national tours, he can't bring bands out. And I understand there's a lot of countries that are in the same boat, but comparatively speaking, man, we've had our shit together. People have followed instructions.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like we've done a few of those seated shows, and like as weird as they were for, I don't know, I didn't even think they were that weird, to be honest. Like it was like 2 songs of like, this is a bit strange. But then after that, I was just like, I haven't been on a stage for that long. This is fucking awesome. Like, and people were so respectful of what they had to do to make the show happen. Just to keep the venue open and keep the band on the stage. Like after not having something that means so much to them for that long, it's just been crazy seeing their response. And we did a couple of those seated ones, and then we rocked into Melbourne the other week, and I hadn't seen a pit, like a proper pit, for ages. And first song, it was just all in. I was like, fucking hell, it's crazy, man. Like it's clear how much it means to people. And like I said, they don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so it's all in today, which is good. It's great, man. It's going to be a big resurgence for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, mate. Before I let you go, can you tell people where they can go to support you, so your socials pages, and can you just tell people, because you're doing an East Coast tour, aren't you?
We're going everywhere, man. We just announced a Perth show yesterday.
Nice.
We're trying to, as I said before, we're trying to play with a lot of different styles of bands. But we're also trying to do a lot of regional shows this year, just because yeah, the overseas stuff's probably still off the cards for a little while. So we're going to try and hit some places we haven't done before in Australia. And like, you know, those little towns, man, they really appreciate it when you make the effort to go there. You know, just get the local bands down and just really support those even smaller scenes. So yeah, we've got Perth, we got Adelaide, Port Pirie. We're doing a Metal United down under. We got a show in Whyalla. We're doing that Killfest thing with King Parrot. So we got a lot of stuff coming up, which is really exciting. So yeah, if you want to check out any tour dates or support direct, just go to flamingwrekage.com. All our merch and stuff's up there. And yeah, other than that, it's just all over the streaming services. You can check us out there. But yeah.
Yeah, Cathedral of Bones, a modern classic in the brutal thrash genre, man. I mean that. I mean, it's all there. I mean, if people love what James Hetfield started and Dave Mustaine started back in the day, but have some Cannibal Corpse in there and some of Slayer's heavier stuff, you've done it. It's all there.
Oh, thanks, man.
You have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was Dave Lupton from the Sydney-based group Flaming Wrekage. Thanks for tuning in.